Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we're going to talk about the power of employee ownership and discuss why so many firms are moving towards this model as a means to attract and retain talent and to help focus minds and resources on the value of investing in skills and innovation. Clearly other ownership models are available. For example, the engineering consulting sector has seen a huge change of late with the emergence of a small number of super large, globally focused businesses. And while they argue that this model does not stop them from being great employers or indeed from investing in new ideas, there's also a school of thought that suggests that employee ownership remains the true path to equity for all. Well, to discuss this issue, my guest today is Simon Light, Chief Executive for Europe, Middle East and Africa at consultant GHD. Now, GHD is a business which is indeed owned by its 11,000 staff around the world, and it's a model which the firm says, and I quote, is a powerful point of differentiation that helps drive passion and accountability in how it serves clients, delivers projects, and pursues new opportunities. So let's discuss. Simon, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Great pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Well, let's kick off by finding out a little bit more about GHD. Your roots are in the Australian market, but you are global. But it's fair to say that many in the UK may not be that familiar with the name. So how do you describe the GHD business and its offer?
GHD is a global multidisciplinary professional services firm. We provide innovative and integrated solutions, solving really the biggest challenges in the areas of water, energy, and communities. We work with clients and partners across our ecosystem in both the private and public sector, supporting critical infrastructure across the asset lifecycle with our architecture, engineering, environmental, management consulting, digital, and construction services. We are, of course, not the other well-known GHD brand in the UK, Good Hair Day. Our focus is on delivering impact in other ways, with our commitment clearly on addressing the biggest challenges the world we think is facing in the markets of energy, environment, property and buildings, transport and water. Okay.
Well, I'm pleased you made that differentiation that we're not talking about hair products, but we are indeed talking about engineering consultancy. I've titled the podcast The Power of Employee Ownership. So let's get straight to that issue. Why do you say that employee ownership provides that powerful point of differentiation for GHD and helps you to win more work and get the best staff?
So currently, GHD are the sixth largest employee-owned company in our industry. Others include the likes of Gensler and Mott MacDonald. From a personal perspective, it's a model that I've come to learn more about in the last 4 years, after a career predominantly in a limited liability partnership and a public listed company as well. So at GHD, we are 100% owned by 30% of our employees, spread across the full breadth of our business. And with this, it clearly drives a very clear series of values and a culture where for the vast majority of our client commissions, our clients are actually facing into materially invested owners of this business who are delivering outcomes to their requirements. And we're seeing clear benefits of this every single day. Our people are empowered to share knowledge, to collaborate, and to deliver our agreed purpose as a business, which is that with our clients, we create lasting community benefit. We also have one single employee ownership program across our whole business globally. Now that therefore drives our desired need to really be globally connected. It drives a teamwork, it drives a collaboration. It really brings global best practice to local needs, gives our people and employees the ability to experience working in different cultures across the world, ultimately driving that mindset that is centered on making a genuine difference, rather than perhaps actually just delivering profit for stakeholders or shareholders who you never ever meet. So we've seen in the industry over many years that the values, the culture, the innovation, the entrepreneurship that employee ownership drives is attractive across industry. We've seen SKM's acquisition by Jacobs. We've seen WSP's acquisition of Golder. I've personally learned over the last 4 years there's huge power in the model. And most importantly, actually, I think it just creates an exceptional culture within the firm.
Well, and of course, you are growing, and particularly in the UK. In fact, I met you and the team recently at the opening of your new London office, where everyone was very clear about the scale of your ambitions for the UK. Can you summarize those ambitions for me now? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And, by when?
So globally, across the whole enterprise with our 11,500 people, we are ambitious to grow and to differentiate all of the markets that we serve, to really be a top 3 player in each of those markets. We can see a clear route to organically doubling the scale of our global business in the next 5 years. Our strategy is quite deliberately titled Make It Real. And that really does have a real lens towards being scenario-based, reflecting that a lot is changing in our markets very quickly, and in a world that, as a business, we need to be adaptive to, but also of a scale and agility and a bit of innovative mindset to meet these changing demands. In the UK, to your question, Anthony, we've currently got over 500 people delivering solutions to our clients. And in the immediate term, we've got ambitions to double that in the coming 3 years. Beyond that, it's really important that we recognise what is needed, what our clients demanding, what are the services that we require as well. And so that rather than actually just focus on headcounts as a measure, actually, what is it that in terms of AI and database solutions and platforms and so on that are needed to have the appropriate skills and scale to carry that influence, keep our culture importantly, and deliver those solutions that I mentioned.
So maybe that you'll be offering some very, very specific niche skills which don't require a huge number of headcounts. It's not about really the scale or the size. I mean, what interests me is I suppose what stopped you in the past from really growing in the UK? Has it just been an unattractive market? It's a difficult market, certainly, but what stopped you in the past? Why now?
Why now? Well, we've been in the market for a while. We acquired a company called JHE Livigan just over 7 years ago, and also acquired a company called Movement Strategies, a very specialist people movement consulting business, just over 3 years ago, which was perfect timing because we bought them and then COVID hit and everything stopped moving. So timing's everything. But it's one of these strategies that we've had about building niche capability rather than actually just building big scale. Globally, for us as an organisation, we recognise that we need to have a strong base in the UK in order to be a credible global business. Our main headcount currently is in Asia Pacific, in Australia, New Zealand, and in North America, as I mentioned. But having a really strong base in the UK and across EMEA, we see as critically important to generally be a global business, but also to serve the needs of our clients wherever they need us as well.
So huge ambitions there. But I mean, why do you think your ownership model can really help you to meet those ambitious goals?
I think first and foremost, it starts about culture and the culture that the employee ownership brings. We do see that it's a very attractive model for people and employees to come into. It's a model where it allows people to be materially invested in the company that they're working in. They can actually see that material benefit, not just from a teaming and collaboration perspective, but also from a financial perspective as well. And of course, that as being a material owner, they also are very, very engaged in the key decisions of where the business is going and what it is doing as well. When you've got that sense of global collaboration and global teamwork, it really does drive that entrepreneurship, that innovation, and that mindset that really in design and technology solutions is so critical to meeting on a day-to-day basis. So we feel that it's a very relevant model that's been proven over many, many decades now. To really embracing that sense of innovation, but also that single purpose. Yeah,
so people will feel that they're actually bought into those solutions and more part of the overarching company strategy. Really big global challenges, I suppose. You're a global business, and you stress the fact that it's not just about the UK. It's a lot of these problems are global challenges that you're solving. Talking a bit more about those, it was a fantastic opening night at your London office, and we had everyone's science idol, Professor Brian Cox, there, and I loved, his emphasis that he made to everyone in the room about the power of science as the call to arms to make sure that there's a future for our civilization, which is very powerful. I mean, what stood out for you as a takeaway from his amazing 1 hour lecture that he gave us about these global challenges?
Yeah, it certainly was a treat, wasn't it? And a very powerful summary from Brian as well. The key message that he really left me was that we may well be the only civilization left in the galaxy.
Right.
And that message made a real impact across myself, but also across JHD and our clients. And really that sense of responsibility that we have got in our industry and more broadly across society to intentionally focus far harder in driving our ESG and sustainability outcomes, and that we must not dither in making some very important incremental steps sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I also like to challenge it. It does link directly to our purpose as a business around creating lasting community benefit. And while appreciating that we did pay him to attend, it wasn't scripted. So it was one that we felt resonated very strongly. And really kind of redefine the purpose of why is it so important about what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that people like Professor Brian Cox, they come in and they set some challenges to individuals or to companies within our sector, to challenge the professionals to make that change. I mean, how do you think GHD can convert, the power of your ambition into action?
I think, again, it's about intentional focus and commitment. And our strapline across GHD is actually the power of commitment. And with a very clear leadership direction towards, we are en route to being carbon neutral by 2025 and to be net zero by 2030. So very deliberate action being taken. We're deliberately focused on the development services that decarbonize assets and also other services that are focused very deliberately around environmental and social outcomes. Investing deliberately also in technology as well, and material science, making sure also that we're developing and co-creating solutions that are focused on making the difference rather than actually just playing with toys.
Right.
And making sure that it's quite relevant in what you're doing towards not just delivering economic gain for companies and for clients, but actually what material difference is it making as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, come back to the power of employee ownership and getting that real sense of team around that. I see it can make material gains in a very short period of time.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the three areas you're focusing on a bit earlier, the energy transition, community, water. Why do you pick those, and how do you see each of those markets developing?
So the foundation of that thinking was really that there's increasing demand, there's increasing expectation, and we're trying to do all of that with decreasing resources. So at 30,000 feet level, we're very deliberately focused on meeting that challenge in each of the areas of energy, water, and communities. From an energy perspective, clearly we're very focused, as the rest of the industry are right now, on that transition towards an affordable, reliable, secure, and low carbon energy future. We're very focused deliberately on hydrogen, offshore renewables, and energy networks in that regard. In water, GHD has got huge, depth of experience over many, many generations in this sector. And that sense of water scarcity, resilience, aging critical infrastructure assets, more relevant to the UK, we see that we're very well placed to help clients with. And of course, with communities and particularly around transport, really seeing transport as a catalyst for change across our communities.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Recognizing also that people in a post-COVID world we're choosing through their own behaviors to connect in different ways. They're not having to connect via transport networks. They can stay at home, etc. But we're increasingly seeing through our movement strategies business that actually that sense of needing to connect is incredibly important. And certainly we saw it in our London office opening just last week. The power of that connection is unfathomable.
Let's talk a bit about you, Simon. You've been with GHD for 4 years, and before that you were with Arcadis and EC Harris before that. For nearly 20 years, I think you spent with Arcadis and EC Harris. Much of that time was in Dubai. You worked at the QS with CBA on projects in Edinburgh and Glasgow. So you've got quite a rounded background in cost control, I suppose, and that kind of whole kind of management of the business. Why the move to GHD, an engineering consultancy?
The main reason that I moved was I took this call from who is now my colleague on the global executive and the people leader, who's a behavioral psychologist and an organizational psychologist. And he wanted to have a chat about me, where I am in my career, what were my ambitions, and what makes me tick. He didn't talk to me about a role. He talked to me about actually, what are you thinking for the next stage of your life? And I thought that was quite different as an approach. And so I had another conversation and then a further conversation, and this story goes on. But as an approach, it goes right down to the core actually of GHD as being a learning organization, and making sure that actually there's that continued focus on developing leaders, developing talent, all the way through the business. And it lives true to today, actually. And going back to your point of my roots and being a QS in a small practice, and a great practice called CBA in Edinburgh, that gave me that platform, which I still use today, actually, in some of my dealings.
Okay.
That sense of understanding building technology and construction, understanding how costs and time fit together, and how that ultimately kind of delivers towards value as well. And I'm seeing the whole industry move much more towards that sort of commercially led technical authority, but with now obviously that very important added element of sustainability, and how do you measure that value sustainability as well?
Yeah. I mean, you spent 12 years in Dubai. I mean, would you recommend that as a training ground for infrastructure professionals?
I'd recommend an overseas stint for any young professional. A great experience to see different cultures in practice, actually create some resilience in the early stages of your career, to get different challenges, get thrown the deep end on different projects. For me, I was there for a long time, as you mentioned there, and working on projects that you wouldn't dream of in most cases in the UK, and so you learn quite fast. You have to learn quite fast, but in a market also where people have the ability to go and explore different parts of the world from a different base. So I'd highly recommend it. It was very, very, very enjoyable.
Well, you've worked in the property sector. You've worked on petrochemical, urban development projects. You've led global business integration processes. I mean, it's quite a range in your career. I mean, what would you describe as your highlights?
Right. How long do we have here?
Give us one.
I'll give you one. I think actually in the core, I think of us all in our industry, we like to see things getting done. And there's one particular project that I was involved in from cradle to grave, really from a blank sheet of paper on what we should do through to handing over the keys. And it was a shopping mall in Dubai, an enormous project that was delivered in just over 3.5 years. And handing the keys over to the overall owner and seeing the impact that it had, not just on their business actually, but on the future community that it was going to serve, I felt this is actually what we're doing this all for. And not just an asset that was going to be there for the next 8-10 years. They'll be there for the next 50-60 years,
right?
If not longer. So yeah, a very proud moment.
I mean, meanwhile, you live in the delightful Chilterns countryside, northwest of London. What do you do then when you're not at work, Simon? Because clearly you're spending a lot of time at work, but what do you do when you're not at work?
So my passion is running and outdoor pursuits. And so I do try and do that. It helps me free my mind, but also helps me keep fit as well. I have to say that my place of peace is high up on mountains. And so whenever I can, I'll head back up to the Scottish Highlands with mates and try not to get injured and go bagging some Munros. So
that's actual fell running rather than just walking then.
That's right. Yes.
All right.
So great fun. But ultimately, family is my purpose. I've got 2 daughters, 18 and 16 now, and as you can imagine, this stage of life, they certainly keep you busy. But yeah, as a family, we all enjoy actually the outdoor pursuits, whether it's skiing or sports, yeah, so that's what keeps me busy.
Okay, very nice part of the world you're in to do all that, and certainly getting up to Scotland, I imagine, is a great privilege. So enjoy that. Speaking, to a lot of your team recently in London, I mean, it's clear that the use of, and you mentioned it earlier, the use of and the power of technology and data is central to your growth aspirations. I mean, is that right? I mean, how do you see it rolling out?
Our view is that the whole reference to digital will soon disappear, and it will really just this is just the way that things are done around here. And so to that end, we're investing heavily in various automation techniques to service our clients, whether it's in design, engineering, architecture, new digital technologies focused on how do you actually help clients come to a decision, and whether it's in virtual reality, augmented reality, how do you actually start creating platforms that also allow for that integrated decision-making from end user community into clients and ecosystem partners. And then also just the broader sense of using data in everything that you do, creating those common data environments that create that standardization and effectiveness. It's something that we deliberately have focused on. We've created a digital business from scratch 4 years ago, which is now over 650 people strong. But we're increasingly seeing in everything that we do, whether it's you're in a people team, whether you're in a legal function, whether in a finance team, whether you're delivering clients on an engineering solution, the use of data, the use of digital techniques is just paramount now.
Okay. I mean, and that requires, I imagine, quite a lot of new talents, new diverse thinking. And of course, getting that diversity of thought remains a problem across the sector. I mean, how do you make sure that you at GHD can attract the brightest, smartest young professionals from across all backgrounds that are needed to deliver that strategy?
Yeah, it's definitely a need for a whole mix of skill sets and education. From data scientists and analysts to astrophysicists, through to engineers, architects, and so on. It's a very broad church. There's a real sense I got with our new London office opening of that diversity of super bright people who come from a very broad background, but also suddenly how old I suddenly felt, and how many of our young graduates are coming in from all these different backgrounds and highly talented, motivated people. And I think the future looks very bright in that respect.
Yep. And they're all having fun. I mean, presumably having fun at GHD is a priority. If you've got Australian roots, they always have fun in Australian companies, don't they?
Well, when they're winning the Ashes, yes. But for sure, we genuinely believe that having fun in the workplace is very, very important. We spend so much time with colleagues, in some cases more time with colleagues than we do with their own families. And so with that, having the ability to create an environment where those social networks can be developed, and quite frankly, where everybody can really bring themselves to work is very important, rather than it being an environment where you have to behave in a certain way. We don't believe that's conducive to diversity of thinking, empowerment, and frankly, an inclusive, fair culture.
Okay. I mean, one of the things which we talk a lot about on the Infrastructure podcast is transforming performance, driving up productivity, embracing new ideas, new technologies. I mean, what lessons can GHD bring to the UK market from experience around the world about doing things better?
Great question. And I think sort of around this, firstly, is that globalization has certainly helped basically make the world smaller. And the sharing of those global ideas is now critical to delivering required solutions on a local basis. And just one of those examples would be PFAS. So polyfluorinated alkyl substances, basically substances that are undetectable, but do very much get into water streams and can impact wildlife, but also impact the water sources that we're drinking and using every day. It's been taken more seriously in Europe, but the UK is just really getting onto it. So that sense of global best practice from the evidence and experience that we've had in Australia and North America can certainly come to life. Another position that we're seeing more and more is the emerging technologies and actually embracing and utilization of technologies that actually can span geographies, can span nations to deliver that impact. What I do see actually that the Australians do particularly well is stakeholder management and engagement. That can-do spirit that you mentioned earlier is very much at the heart, but actually that engagement at community level, they seem to do extremely well and really with the benefit there of getting projects up and running sooner rather than later. And the last one I'd just share with you is just around renewable energy. And clearly, with the likes of Australia being abundant with sun and heat. They're looking at solar, but also looking at solar in the context of hydrogen production, and really come up with very, very smart techniques that I'm absolutely convinced the UK and more broadly across Europe governments can learn on.
Well, all of those, of course, bring us back to Professor Brian Cox and his call to arms. I mean, clearly he was talking about tackling climate change while also mitigating the impacts of climate change. It's simultaneously keeping those two things in your mind while you're building infrastructure resilience. I mean, how do you, as a business, help to balance and prioritize those ambitions?
I think your last two words are very important. It's about prioritization and focus, and recognizing where we want to be investing quite deliberately to make that difference, and taking choices where all choices will have some form of trade-off, but we stand by that and move forward. What we are seeing particularly actually is the need for increasing collaboration globally, not just across JHD, but with our clients and with ecosystem partners as well, and making sure that there's quite simple focus. And one of those examples would be around ESG and sustainability, where we're recognizing that there are different governments and investors taking different position on ESG. But as a company, we've been very clear that this is something which is critically important to really make a difference that Brian Cox alludes to. And that we will absolutely work with the clients and work with partners who think in that similar way.
Okay, and I'm presuming your Australian roots and experience will help you navigate that challenge. So sum it up for me then, Simon. I mean, how do you see GHD helping the UK to meet this vast infrastructure challenge, challenges that lie ahead? And I mean, how do you see that employee ownership model really underpinning the challenges you've got ahead?
So for me, it's about really making it real, to my earlier point, really getting after the incremental steps with the smart technical solutions, with the right business consulting approach as well, to make sure that actually effective decisions can be made. We're seeing a lot of times where investment decisions are taken without the benefit of smart technical solutions, and they become distressed. And so our very clear view on this is that we need to be attaching technical authority directly to smart investments in order to make that difference in a small way, perhaps to begin with, but that those incremental steps continue to be made. I also think that the culture that we bring with employee ownership is very deliberately focused around teamwork, collaboration, and connectivity. So that ability to work in tandem with clients, with people within JHD and with our broader partners, we see as a key route to success, and to make sure that the solutions we come up with are sustainable for many, many generations to come.
Simon, that's a powerful point to finish on. I think that is, I suppose, one of the reasons that you would say that the best young engineering talent should consider GHD as the employer of choice. So thanks very much for joining me on the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thanks, Simon. As I say, that's all we've got time for today, but we will have more from the Infrastructure Podcast in the pipeline and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background information, some of the subjects we've talked about today, and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again to Simon. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.